Freedom, not government spending, is the mainspring of economic prosperity. Freedom, not democracy, is a country's best investment. Entrepreneurial capitalism is in an epic struggle with big government. Only freedom and free markets can counterbalance an interventionist state. Will America once again show its resilience by relying on the freedom of its people to jumpstart economic growth, or will we rely on the genius of government spending? As I get to travel the United States, I have to tell you that the myth, while widely held in this country, very widely, is that even though the 12 recessions that preceded this one go all the way back to 1930 and the Great Depression, and then you go through all the recessions, and we've had 13 of them. In every one of those 12, except this one, 12 recessions, faulty monetary and fiscal policy. It's really true. The Great Depression, faulty monetary and fiscal policy. The Great Depression, what did they do? We had the 1920s, a nice 25% tax rate. What did Congress do? Raise the tax rate to 70% in 1932. And oh, by the way, it didn't stay at 70% forever, only 5 decades. Only the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, and the 70s. 5 straight decades of 70% marginal tax rate. That's enough to break the back of any economy. You wonder how America made it through those 5 decades. But anyway, so that's one example of bad policy. Another one, they passed the Smoot-Hawley tariff, broke the back of international trade. That alone could have brought an economy down. Number 3, the Federal Reserve System, instead of adding money to the money supply, constrained the money supply 1/3, a 1/3 monetary contraction between October of 1929 and March of 1933. Huge contraction. Well, what do you expect is going to happen? Well, we had the Great Depression. Now, I'd walk you through each of the recessions since the 1930s. Faulty monetary, faulty fiscal policy. But now we get to this one, 2008 and 2009, and trust me, 9 out of 10 people believe what I'm going to say. It's the market's fault. It's the bankers' fault. It's greed. It's realtors. It's whatever. It's the market's fault. That's what they say. All other ones, faulty monetary and fiscal policy, and this one, though, is the market's fault. Well, I know most of you don't believe that, but if you did, I've got 4 questions. 4 questions. Question number 1 is, what if I built a box and I took a mouse and put the mouse in the box, and then I grabbed a cat and put the cat in the box with the mouse, and you know what's going to happen? The cat kills the mouse. Question. Here's the first question. Is that the cat's fault, or is that my fault? I put the cat in there with the mouse. Did I expect the cat to act anything other than like a cat? Do you expect a banker to act anything other than being a banker? They like to loan out. They like to leverage. Do you think a builder, they like to pound nails and build things? No, this recession is the market's fault. Well, then I've got 3 more questions for you. Question number 2 is it the market's fault that Congress would pass the Community Reinvestment Act and literally force lenders to make loans to unqualified buyers? What banker would do that? There's no bank. You do not make loans to unqualified buyers. The government says, oh, I guess I catch the point there. You're going to be a little reluctant to do that, so here's what we'll do. We'll put together Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and we'll have Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac guarantee your loan. Really? Really. So we get out to the year 2007. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have guaranteed $2.5 trillion worth of subprime loans. $2.5 trillion. $2.5 trillion. Do you know that Germany is the third biggest economy in the world today? Do you know that this year, 2010, Germany will barely produce $2.5 trillion of gross domestic product? You mean to tell me that we're going to take $2.5 trillion and give it to 14, 16, 18, 20 million unqualified buyers? Yes. And that is the market's fault? Please. Next question. Is it the market's fault that the Federal Reserve System would lower interest rates down less than 1% and then leave them there for almost 3 years? Now wait, think, please, please. As we think of the federal funds rate, it's averaged about 4% across a 30 or 40-year time span. So we have some kind of a benchmark on the federal funds rate. 3%, 4%, 5%, but somewhere around 4%. The Fed lowered interest rates to below 1% and then held them there. Now, is it surprising to anyone that when you can borrow money for free, that you're going to borrow dollars and buy anything? Is that a shock? Is it a shock that the cat killed the mouse? Are you shocked by that? What do you think we're all going to do? We're all going to borrow dollars, buy anything. Now, when we do that, do you think that's going to create bubbles? Do you think that oil is going to go to $140 a barrel? Do you think that corn is going to go $2.50 a bushel to $8.50 a bushel? Do you think that steel is going to go from $300 a metric ton to $1,200 a metric ton? And I could go through 100 commodities and 100 items, bubbles, bubbles, bubbles everywhere. And the Federal Reserve System takes no responsibility for this. Ellen Greenspan says, it's not my fault. Ben Bernanke says, it's not my fault. Well, whose fault is it? When you leave interest rates down below 1%, everybody borrows dollars for nothing and buys anything. There's bubbles everywhere. You didn't notice? You didn't notice that gold went to $1,200 an ounce? You didn't notice that oil goes to $140 a barrel? Excuse me. Federal Reserve System, naughty, naughty, naughty. Grow up. Take responsibility for what you have done. Well, so this recession, the market's fault? Hardly. But here we are. If I could have a wish, it would be to take Barney Frank, dress him up in a mouse suit, and put him in the box that he built. He built it. I didn't. He built it. And then I'll let you choose the cat that you want to throw in there with him. Please. Well, we're trying to get out of a recession. The worst recession we've had since the Great Depression was 1980-81, under the tail end of Jimmy Carter and now the beginning of Ronald Reagan. The unemployment rate went to 12.7%. Ours reached about 10.2. The interest rates went to 20%. I'm not lying to you, for you youngsters in here. I'm not lying to you. In 1980, 81, 82, interest rates 20%. It's the gospel truth. Number 3, inflation went to about 14%. So in every sense of the word, this really was a tough, tough recession of 1980, 81, and 82. Now, I've already told you that we had tax rates of 70% in the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, and the 70s. So the 70s stunk up the place. The 70s, high inflation. The 70s, high unemployment. The 70s, $70 a barrel for oil. The 70s, Russia was taking over the world. That's right. In the 1970s, Russia was taking over the world. There was a good chance that they were going to succeed at taking over the world. And then to top it all off, Jimmy Carter was president of the United States. It doesn't get worse than this, folks. It doesn't get worse than this.